It's the weekly 30-30 list on the ASX. We're looking at the 30 best momentum companies over the last quarter and the 30 best on the launchpad. These are companies that have had the best improvement over the last week. Gary Glover has been through the list and picked out his favourite charts to share with us. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
I'm great, Chris.
We've been through the list. Last week, you'd already picked out a trade before close yesterday on Thursday. Is this week this list is good, or are you seeing what have you picked out of it?
I haven't traded anything on the list yet, but there's a few things on here that I'm watching for sure. There's actually a few stocks on here that I've personally been monitoring as well. So just obviously I'm sort of scanning for leaders as well, using different things as well. So there's a few on there that I'm definitely watching there. Sometimes it's you're watching just for them to go through a consolidation phase and then join back in the party, because obviously markets don't go up in a straight line. I'll have a phase of sort of trending up, and then I'll have a bit of a consolidation phase, and then so we sort of I think this exercise we've been going through here for the last 18 months here, Chris, sort of shows that these leading stocks have got a habit of leading for a lot longer than everyone thinks, and so they can stay in that quarterly list for quite a long period of time. So monitoring those for a consolidation and then joining back in the party once they've sort of had that little breather is often a good good place to sort of be monitoring. So so definitely been doing a bit of that. So but it's a pretty treacherous environment out there. So it's obviously reporting season here, so we're getting some pretty big swings in the market, but seeing things that sort of going up hard and coming back down hard and going back up hard. So really got to be pretty swift, or can't be chasing too hard in this market here. So you got to be So I think the position there last week, I've already sort of cut that position and re-entered that position just because it's swinging around so much. So that's the type of market we're in. So it's interesting. But on the quarterly list, first one that I sort of noticed here was just number 3, OM1. So it's had a bit of a pop there, some reasonable volume. Got met with some pretty harsh shelling at the top as well. So that's probably that's not so negative. That's not so positive sort of sign there. Number sort of 4 on the list, BAS. This is kind of interesting here because we've had a pretty strong run. The interesting thing here, Chris, is actually going back here. So we had this little pop and this consolidation there, and this is sort of like this little, this is our little cup and handle in here. That's really good. That's a sort of setup there. I mean, I think I sent you a link during the week there for Mark Minervinni's trades for the last couple of years, which someone put together, which was pretty amazing list and all the charts and stuff and commentary. But the common theme was this pattern here. That was what he was looking for. He was sort of looking for this cup and handle, and this consolidation under the high, and then pushing through. And I reckon 80% of the trades he was looking at looked exactly like this. Some of them bigger over a longer time frame, but this sort of setup here, and then obviously closing above that high there. So you would have been up one of these sort of day here.
If you'd zoomed in and were able to see, I'm sure there'd be a higher volume day on one of those big, strong green candles before the gap up.
Yeah, so even though this is a pretty small sort of stuff, that's the sort of setup that he's looking for. I just thought it was interesting that sort of, when I was looking through, I think I looked through about 40, 50 charts there of all the sort of trades that he sort of tweeted there, and that one of the guys had put together. There was just a real strong similarity in the look of those charts. I was actually thinking there'd be a lot more sort of VCP. I mean, that they were VCP, but not the sort of simple,
not the textbook ones.
There was more of this sort of cup and handle type of, this sort of consolidation under the high and then the pop there.
It's reminiscent of the book that you gave me a couple of years ago of William O'Neill's trades over the decades, and it's just consistently he's highlighting that kind of pattern.
Yeah, Yeah, this is, I mean, I just sort of, in the last sort of few weeks here and last month, this sort of cup and handle, that's sort of something I really need to do a bit more work on. I've been sort of reading about that. So gone back through, read monster stocks there the last couple of weeks, and then analysed all Minervini's trades, and this setup here was just all the way through them, just rife. So, he's probably one of the best traders on the planet. So if he's trading this setup, we should be sort of, a lot more serious about it as well. So, yeah, I'll be sort of looking at this more closely there. And I know, like David Ryan speaks about this little, consolidation under the high as well. So, yeah. So, I mean, this is an interesting chart here. We've had a pretty decent move. Now it's sort of starting to congest here. So you probably want to sort of see this go through a bit of a breather. But this is sort of one to just watch here now. So we want to see this thing tighten up, use a bit more time here. But it could be one to sort of keep an eye on moving forward there. But yeah, interesting sort of stuff here. So yeah, this is interesting pattern here. I mean, this is sort of a pretty strong volume through here, Chris, on this RUS. It's sort of, if we go back there, I mean, there's our sort of cup there with a bit of a handle there. End up sort of not pushing through there. End up sort of congesting under the high here. Sort of stayed there. Did eventually break out, have a bit of a throwback, which would have made it hard. So this is one of those trades there where it probably wouldn't have worked out. You might have got triggered in here, had a move up there. Maybe if you got your stop back at break even, you might have been stopped out at square. But yeah, they do this, like a lot of them. A lot of people are looking at their same pattern, so you will get sort of throwbacks here. So yeah, but yeah, it's obviously gone on since then and have a bit of consolidation in here. But this volume is still pretty robust, Wow.
It's getting bigger on the rise as opposed to
yeah. I mean, I'm always sort of wary if I sort of saw, light volume and then a big volume spike, exhaustive sort of, characteristics. So something like that, see how that sort of had been light volume there and then the big volume wick there. That can be exhaustive when you sort of see it run, and then big spike in volume. So, but yeah, this is pretty solid all the way through here. So this is telling me just still keep watching this one here, even though it's run quite a bit. It's not showing too much weakness here. So yeah, we should be watching that one sort of closely. MEI's had a nice sort of run there. Had a bit of a breather here. Interesting, obviously it's impulsive move here, but the thing I like here is that, gee, there's all this.
That volume just dried up in the consolidation.
Yeah. So, I know we've had a cool off here, but so far we've just sort of, so again, this might be nice here just to congest a bit more time here. But again, when you see this sort of selling, oftentimes when you see these small ones pop and then they come all the way back, you see the selling come straight in, and then we get really drawn in pretty quickly. Yeah, whereas others, you see big volume come in and it comes all straight back, and then you go, it's just it was a little bit of a squeeze at the time, not too much. There's plenty. There was actually on that list there, Chris, in the 30, there was quite a lot there that had that sort of light volume push, and they were on their way back as well. So I've avoided a lot of those in the list there, just because they were sort of lighter volume on the way up there.
So is that the quarterly one where they've already shot out?
Just probably both lists there. Just looking for a bit of volume there. So, you just want to see constructive volume sort of building through there and solid, and not just a one-off one day where it all sort of pushes through. So, but yeah, I just noticed there was quite a few in the list there, in both lists there, that were that had moved decent but under very low volume. So on that basis there, I just I wish I'd sort of written down an example here now. I think there might be one actually, MGT on the so there's a good example there. Yeah.
What's the percentage? The numbers are just off the side of the chart. What's the percentage rally there?
So that's a decent move. So that's a pretty big pop. That's about 40 cents to 80 cents. That's gone up 50.
Yeah.
It's gone 100%. So, but I can't see any volume in here. The volume's pretty light. I know we've had a few bars in there, but the volume's pretty light here so far. So that's sort of one that I wouldn't chase, just because this hasn't gone up. It's almost like just sort of kind of relief rally or short covering rally or just, yeah. So I like to see volume there because that's sort of ones that, those are sort of ones that end up coming back quite deep in the range when there's no conviction in the buying. So whereas if there's conviction in there, then when it does pull back, it's going to be supported again because they're looking to sort of come back in. So one I sort of keep an eye on was this 40X, just because it has come down a low here, bit of volume off here, sort of built, but never really got going. But there was some okay volume through this whole period, almost sort of some signs of accumulation through there, but it never really, so looking through here, it looked like it was a VCP pattern coming through here, but it never really got going, I think it didn't close above that level. It opened up here and you might have been getting excited to stay, and then it closed below, and then it just, it's gone back here. So we sort of start again, but yeah, just sort of tightening up here, sort of building here, but yeah, it's just sort of one to keep an eye on. But again, there's one that sort of has failed here, Chris, as well. So it's just not a bad setup here, sort of got good volume characteristics, decent volume characteristics all the way through here, but it failed. So they do fail. That's the thing. That's why you've sort of got to have your risk management techniques in place there. I thought this one was pretty interesting here. The NXL, just this. I highlighted this chart here not because this is a nice little tight pattern in here. So we had a nice volume through that. I think we sort of covered this one recently. Pretty light consolidation and pop here. The reason I sort of brought it up again was because of the drop here. Look how suddenly this just dropped out of bed again. That's kind of the nature. That's the market behavior at the moment. So definitely seeing a lot of stocks swinging a lot harder on the up and the down here than normally. So we're not sort of seeing these controlled corrections. So yeah, so it is a tricky sort of treacherous environment here. You've got to be quick and stuff there. So yeah, because we're getting fast moves, you sort of got to, I think you've sort of got to manage your risk a little bit as well. So whether you're partial trading some of the profits, or whether you're sliding your stops up there, I definitely think you have to be sort of slightly more active there in your risk management approach at the moment. Yeah, I've sort of Monday, I think I'd pretty much lost $5,000 in 5 minutes on the opening just because of some of the big moves. But if I hadn't, I've contained that. In the first 5 minutes, it could have been 8 or 10 grand. So you really got to control your risks, because it's the whole idea is, as George Soros said, it's not important whether you're right or wrong or whether you win or lose. What's important is how much you make when you win and how much you lose when you're wrong, So those are the most important things. So we're going to get environments there where it's tricky, but we must contain the losses. So, you got to live to fight again another day. So, yeah, I mean, I've had a pretty good week after Monday. I've had a pretty good week and sort of, got it all back because we've had a pretty decent swing. Some of the growth's really moving. So, but if I hadn't contained that, then I'm behind the 8 ball, and then I've only made half of it back over the week. And then, so you're just important to really contain your risk here. I'm personally sort of probably only still investing up to half my bank. So I'm still think this is a bit of it's not a green light environment. I still think it's a bit of a, amber here. I still think it's going to be choppy here. So I don't have the foot down at the moment. I'm sort of in the middle there. So I've sort of in this sort of what I call an amber environment here. I'm only usually 50% invested, and my position size is probably 50% of my maximum. So just because of the environment here, and I think not through because it's reporting season, seeing big swings, and I think it's this sort of chart here just typifies the environment we are in at the moment. It's just getting super poppy, and then it's lots of pop and drops here at the moment. So I saw in the States there, everyone was trading. I think it was Growht or something. Might have been was it this one here or something? There was a stock there basically. It was down 34% in aftermarket, and it was down 50% by the time it opened. and every momentum trader that I follow was long that stock in some degree. So
before it crashed.
Yeah, I can't remember. I wish I'd actually write it down here now. But it was just it was just a bit of a lesson there in terms of position sizing as well. Some people got would have got hammered there with being large position. Others are small, but yeah, it just goes to show that's the type of environment we're in. You don't normally sort of see stock go down 50%, open down, which is a stock that's got momentum and all the momentum players sort of playing there. So that's what's sort of still a little treacherous out there. So we've still got to be a little bit careful there. Number 19, I thought this is sort of one that we spoke about a few weeks ago that we had on the list as well, Chris, which was that sort of Tourismholdings there. So new stock, definitely one to keep an eye on here. Did sort of break out of the range here, pull back and then gone again. Now we're sort of gapped up again. So yeah, just the right sector for me. Always a little bit hesitant with IPOs and stuff there, but definitely a stock that I'm sort of watching here closely. Just the price action has been pretty supportive so far. PUK is another one that I'm watching here, just because this is sort of one that I did notice previously. I thought this was a nice little VCP in here, really tightened up quite nice. There's a little small, but not too small. And then we popped up and had a nice run here. So this is sort of showing pretty good characteristics there. Again, had that big volume there after a bit of a run, so it's had a bit of a move here. So what I'm looking for now is see how it's we've got a VCP, we've gone back up to the recent high. So this is all constructive here so far, but I'm hoping what might happen here now is we might get our little cup and handle set up here. So we've got this sort of, our basically sort of U-shaped cup in here. We want to sort of see this, ease off here. Not come back too deep, just congest here under the high and then start to build again. That's just definitely one to keep an eye on there, just because it has so far, shown some pretty good pricing moves here. So, but again, this may not work out at all, mightn't set up at all, but definitely on the radar there in terms of sort of monitoring that, because that's sort of just showing some early positive characteristics there. LDR's had a pretty nice move. Pretty hard to trade that just on a bit of a gap and pop there, but now we're just sort of monitoring this to sort of see where it can congest here. So it's had a nice pullback there. Might try and bounce here, but just one to watch. FAL. Again, just had a bit of a pop on volume there. It's a little erratic, this stock here, just being a bit small here, a little tricky. MAP is sort of one stock that I spoke about a few months ago, Chris. This is the one that Sonic have got about a 20% stake in. So it's only been around for less than a year here now. Just interesting sector. We had a bit of a lightly traded VCP in here and a bit of a pop through, which I thought quite good. But again, we've sort of got a bit like the PUK there. We might have, this might be a big cup here. Now we're looking for a lightly traded handle. So far we've had good volume, had some good volumes all the way through here. Some okay volumes on the spike here as well. Okay volumes at low. So now we're looking for a lightly traded handle. So far we're getting lightly volume on the way down. So this might take weeks to set up here, but this is definitely one to keep an eye on there. It's sort of in the Sonic report, they made mention of a couple of AI companies that they own, and they made mention of this one as well, which they own 20% stake of. So Sonic have got plenty of cash there.
They're still doing a buyback, aren't they?
Seem to weather the storm. So they basically sort of indicated in their report that they're in a really strong balance sheet position, low gearing to go out and actually start making acquisitions and grow again. So hence why the share price. If you look at Sonic, which did make the list there. Have a look at that.
Solid report
yesterday. Oof, a big move there. So so that's sort of signal there and intent there. So it's funny. I was surprised this went to a new low here. I was looking at this the other day, but it's it's literally, this was the day before the report there. Looked a little bit kind of positive there, but yeah, look at that, you know, a little big gap here. So just got to probably monitor this one. This is sort of one that I'll be looking at to try and step in here, but I think it'll probably meander back, give us a better entry. But that MAP is definitely one stock here. So a new company, not around too long, got a big backing there. Company obviously excited about its prospects, actually mentioned it in the report. So yeah, so hopefully we'll get a little handle there. Yeah, maybe it'll come back down to the mid-30s. But yeah, that looks pretty interesting as well. BOT looks pretty interesting here, just because of the volume there, Chris. Look at that big volume there.
That's a solid rise.
Yeah, it's a big volume through the big volume here. So nice there. So we're just we want to sort of see this consolidate, maybe some sort of flag or, you know, consolidation here, a little VCP or something there. But when I see moves like that, that's when you can sort of get something follow through there. So that's another one to keep an eye on. And the last one on the list was number 30, DUG, which is sort of one that I have been following here. It's been pretty robust here. That's sort of come out of a longer term. You know, that's a nice sort of nice false break here, the low, starting to build here now. Yeah, taking out a few swing highs as well. So this is pretty constructive. Some good volume through there. Might have a bit of a pause there, a bit exhaustive, that sort of move there. So now we're just looking for this to go through a pause. So it's funny, I'm sort of seeing this sort of setup here now. Some stocks sort of run and just sort of maybe hit a little bit of a peak, but now we want to sort of see if they can consolidate. And that's why I'm a bit neutral market here. So I think we're sort of due for a bit of a consolidation phase. So yeah, sounds funny. The next 2 or 3 weeks is going to be really revealing as to sort of see whether we see any selling or any volume, or whether we just sort of see a light consolidation. Because even the NASDAQ's had like 3 days up, trading around 5 bill volume, and then last night it was down. It was only 4. So, you know, even though it was down, you know,
it wasn't down on heavy volume. It was down on
heavy
less.
volume. No, yeah. So yeah, and so it's sort of, you're always looking for these sort of, you know, is there any distribution coming in there? There's not. So it's still messy. It's sort of, you know, it's bizarre. It's actually doing everything very similar to that 02-03 period. It's sort of, that was a real building sort of phase there. The volumes are a bit mixed there. That was just sort of, you know, they went super high, and there wasn't any distribution, you know, super big volume or sell downs as well. It was just pretty messy through that period. So the buying was just a little bit stronger than the selling. Yeah, whereas, you know, sometimes you come out of a V-shaped low and the buying is just ferocious, you know, the volume's through the roof, and that's when you get your follow through days, and you're getting many of them. So we're not sort of seeing that, but we're seeing stronger volume on the up days, slightly weaker on the down days. And it's a little messy here. But yeah, but definitely sort of constructive there.
So if that rounds out the quarterlies, are we over to the Launchpad and the ones that have performed better this week?
Yeah, so sort of looking at what's hot to trot on the weekly. PGH, which is, I think, is Pact Group, if I'm not mistaken there.
Yeah, Pact.
That's, am I wrong there? That's had a little false break here too, Chris. Went down, made a marginal new low there, and has popped here so far. So not bad volume through here. So that's definitely one that I like the look of there. Just feel like I'm coming a bit late here, so maybe wait for a little consolidation there. But that is sort of constructive, and the volume's been kind of decent there so far without being, yeah, it's not super volume, but it's sort of constructive there. So BIT, which is sort of one which has sort of been building off the lows there. Some okay volume through the last few weeks. All about see how this consolidates here from now on. SRX is another one, sort of small one. It's actually had probably a nice chunk of sort of 4 or 5 days of sort of solid volume there. Has broken above a swing high. So that's sort of what got my attention there. Just sort of breaking above that previous move there. You know, oftentimes these sort of early stocks here, they just these IPOs, they sort of, they either come out of the box and go hard, and then they come back and retest the low, or they can just sort of fade off here and then start to build later on. So there's definitely like a couple of IPO sort of characteristics which, probably 80% of them fall into. So it's sort of, there's sort of two main setups that I sort of look at there for IPOs. Is sort of, there's just oftentimes, some of them just sort of, there's so much heat, into them early, and they get well priced, and then they come on well priced, and then the selling just sort of, and then the news dries up, and then say 6 months or 12 months later, news starts flowing, and then the company starts flowing. So that's just one to keep an eye on there. I was looking at 88 there. I just she sort of popped out, made that little false break in here. Didn't spend too much time below here. Might have been concerned by the volume in there. There's probably a bit more volume they'd like to see, but we have popped on pretty big volume here. So this is pretty good here, just because we've sort of got a low here, a high low, and another high low here. So we've sort of got building sort of characteristics sort of going on here. So look at that. That's actually not bad. It's sort of like we're now sort of seeing a bit of a VCP on our weekly. So she's popped up here. You almost want to see another consolidation and then a pop through as well. So this is definitely one we should be keeping an eye on here, because it's got sort of leadership type, qualities sort of on it there. I know a few analysts there like this stock here. The price action is pretty impulsive there, because what you're seeing is that when it's going up, it's kind of ripping, and then it's going through more of a consolidation on the down here, and then popping up, sort of ripping on the upside. So it's sort of like that river. You don't want to be going sort of upstream. You want to be sort of flowing with the stream there. So that does look pretty interesting there. Just want to sort of see this consolidate there. CVN, just sort of one I noticed had a little bit of pop, bit of a boring stock here. It's been sort of caught in bulldness for a while. I don't know if it'll get my money. I'd probably too small for me, but just a bit of a change in character there for the stock. We mentioned, Sonic out of the gates there. Wow, big move there. Just, that's just sort of typifying the sort of, the market we're in there. I mean, this is a pretty good company there. It surprised me that it sold off like this. And there was actually some decent volume through there. Everyone's sort of panicking through the bottom here. And then, wow, the stock's just gone straight back up again. So, just sort of seeing that weird sort of, behavior and, across the market at the moment like that. So, here's another sort of fairly large cap here, ORA, at a pretty, again, sort of chopping around at the lows there. Big pop and, run here. So, it's interesting here. I think, this reporting season is going to reveal a bit, kind of reveal some of our new leaders and which companies are faring pretty well. That's sort of one to sort of keep an eye on there. Even Magellan's actually sort of popped up the last couple of days, a bit of change in character. I mean, this thing's been trending down, hardly broken I don't think it's broken a swing high for a long time. And so we have sort of tightened up in here and popped through. First little high broken here. So first time we've sort of moved to a new high for a while, and some okay volume in there. So possible change in character there. Look, it's going to have some headwinds, Chris, just because it's been, if we look at the weekly chart there, that is, it's going to be so many. There's a lot of overhead sellers there that have bought at much higher levels who are just looking to try and minimize their losses. So that's just going to be hold the stock back. But some positive characters there that it's actually gotten out of that range there. And I saw a few brokers have upgraded the stock here. Nothing too fancy there, but so some hope that it might get going there, but not going to be a leader. It's not going to be a leader. So it's just going to, maybe meander higher here. ANO, pretty choppy here, pretty thin. Has popped out of range there, just probably a little bit hard to trade for me. Petrol's sort of interesting there, just sort of pretty tight little price action there. Possible little VCP in there, just a lot of volume in here, Chris. You prefer to see these sort of consolidations on lighter volume. So we just we're seeing volume on the up and volume on the down here. So that's just probably a, push it to the side for me. BMT, I quite like this here. This is sort of change of character at the low here, big volume. It's now moved out of the range, so it's broken a few swing highs, come back into a bit of a trading range here, and we saw a bit of volume again. So that's sort of in that uranium space there. So I think, Paladin's sort of interesting as well, sort of had a bit of a move here, but yeah, the BMT is actually not too bad here, so definitely one to keep an eye on. Last one there was MP1. Again, just more of a building phase here, sort of a bit messy. Again, it looks probably disappointed a few times there. Market probably over discounted this one. They're thinking they had to raise money, which they haven't. That's why it's sort of come back a bit here, but pretty choppy here so far, but is indicative of the market here. I think, I just think maybe what you'll see this is sort of, maybe over time here, what we want to see is a series of sort of high lows, and maybe it's going to base here, but it's a sort of remnant. It is sort of indicative of the environment we're in, and that's sort of, that's why I was sort of saying to people, I've sort of been starting to build some positions in growth stocks here, Chris, but I'm starting small. I'm still lightly invested there. I'm just sort of piecing, putting pieces together on sort of stuff that I think can have a pretty good 23. But I'm starting small here. I'm just, we're just trying to be patient, wait for them to have a cool off and then re-enter there. And I'm putting stops in there. Must put stops in my opinion. So I think we're building here. I think once we get past March here, I think if the market can kind of hang on here, not weaken off too much. Oftentimes the best way to judge the market is two ways. There is how the market is absorbing news. At the moment, we seem to be getting a lot of bad news, and yet the market's actually absorbing it quite nicely. So, some of the CPI numbers were high, yet the market was, the NASDAQ was up the other day in the face of a higher CPI number. So it wasn't as, so that's pretty impressive that the market's actually taken that negative news and actually ended positive. So that's one thing we look at. And the other thing I look at, which I think is really important, is sort of how the market behaves in the counter period. So if you think the market's starting to look positive, we're seeing positive characteristics sort of going up. That's all fine. When it has a little bit of a pullback, that's the most important period to me to watch the stock. So when we go through a consolidation or go through a bit of a down period there, or having a breather, we just want to see lighter volume. We want to sort of see nothing impulsive on the downside. So it's okay to have corrections, but to have breathers. We want to have a little pause in the trend, but we just don't want to see any selling come in. We want to see a period there. So, I'm looking for these consolidation periods there. Similar. If you look at all the momentum stocks that have been going through here the last sort of 12, 18 months, if you just waited for those stocks to have a breather, have a little bit of a sideways period, and they held up nice and tight, and then wait for a little bit of a trigger day, you'd be nailing some pretty good trades in there. You wouldn't have, you'd have some losers in there, but you definitely have a lot more winners than losers, and be coming into sort of the stronger stocks with momentum, and that really didn't sort of sell off too much. So that's the type of thing we're looking for here. So sometimes you got to sit on your hands. It's the ability to sort of sit on the sidelines and not trade, or trade lightly and stuff here, and then wait for those opportunities to set up here. And I just think we're sort of potentially in that little window there where, I've got a few positions on, but I'm still pretty light on, and just building slowly here. That's what I think where we're at the moment.
Well, that's a good summary of where we are, and a good roadmap, not only to fit in with your Tuesday reports, but just for this period ahead. If we do get that consolidation that you've been talking about, that little pullback, it really is quite critical to see how the stocks you're looking at behave. If they really maintain their composure, they're kind of the best ones to be set up for the next leg up, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. So, go through and look at, this is a classic stock here, is Clinuvel, CUV. So that has had a rip-roaring trade here so I think October was the low of the market, and this was already making higher lows into that October. So it was showing relative strength. throughout that period. So when the majority of the market's making new lows, this stock here is making higher lows, and a lot of those biotechs were leading, were showing relative strength as well in that same sector. And then those biotechs have had, and some of the healthcare have had a pretty good, that's been one of the leading segments in the US as well. So they've been amongst the leadership group out of this low here. So since October here, we've gone $17 up to $29. That's a pretty decent move here. So that has showed all the characteristics of what we call leadership value, of the past, and a pretty strong move here. So now we're going through another pullback consolidation there. So we want to see two things there. Obviously, it'd be nice to sort of have a long sideways sort of, pullback, but that's not the way that it's actually not how these momentum stocks often do. They often sort of come back, in a sharp manner like this, and then they build they come back to the 50-day moving average. That's one thing we're looking at. So sort of come back there, but they do need to sort of hold here and see here the last 3 or 4 days. It's sort of sat under the previous high there, so it's maybe a little bit weak here, but so far we haven't seen too much volume there. Apart from that, maybe one day. And that should be a high volume day because that's a massive range. But that's not really that. There's not that much selling in there, considering how big a range that is.
Well, what is it? It's increased for 2 weeks, and the volume for that one day, the relative range to 2 weeks is nowhere near.
So we've gone through 3 or 4 weeks of work on the way up here in a single session here. Yet the volume's not aggressive selling here. So and even through here, it's pretty light of volume here. So this is sort of this stock we should be watching here because this is so far it's done it's showed all the classic leadership qualities of a market leader. But if we go back and study all the monster stocks in the past, you'll see that they don't have these sort of pennants like that. They will come back and retest here. The 50-day average might even sort of go slightly lower here. But what they'll do is they'll mess around a bit here. There shouldn't be too much volume, and they should sort of hold here. So it's a bit early here. I think this one's you just want to sort of see how it holds here. But I think I want to see this sort of stock here build for a few weeks, be pretty messy here, but not go too much, not go too deep here. Maybe it sort of comes back into the range in here somewhere. But this is exactly the type of stock we're looking at. We're looking at stocks that have really, really done really well in that period. I think even at 88 as well, the other one that's sort of, that's another one, people are touting as being, pretty strong. So again, in October, it made a higher low. Didn't really get going here like some of the biotechs there, but it has sort of held up pretty well in that tech sector there and gone through a bit of a corrective decline here. So just another one to sort of keep an eye on as well. So so we're looking for the stocks that have held up the best, just showed those early, probably made higher lows in October rather than new lows. So there's the stocks we got to monitor here over the coming weeks. So so it's just we're just going through that little phase in the market there where we just we might be sort of just on patrol rather than doing too much trading here.
Well, that's a good way to look at the next couple of weeks. So on that, we'll probably wrap and say thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.
Gary's mentioned a few strategies: springs, false breaks, VCPs, and also those rallies that can be high and tight flags. There's a whole series of those trading strategies and in-depth analysis of them on the right-hand side. Also on the right is Gary's Tuesday report, so you can subscribe to the channel to get updated when he updates his report or brings out videos like this one. Finally, on the left-hand side is Gary's Twitter handle if you want to follow him there.